husbands. Great. So let's talk about it.
So Janet and I have been talking, and we'd like to bring you in on this conversation. We're talking about and asking each other, why is it so important to talk about it?
Yeah.
What is the real benefit to talking about it? What's the gold nugget at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, because bringing this conversation about how, how trauma kept secret, right? Held aside and kept secret. When people like that guy at the party you were talking about, when he said, I just got over it. I just got up, I walked on, I moved on with my life. And then
walked it off, don't feel traumatized, I'm okay.
And then his wife says, what?
He's traumatized.
He's traumatized. Because we watch people in our lives, right? And
Yeah.
I know, I think that's kind of an interesting thing that the individual feels they're fine. Right?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's unique at all. I think, and what I'm saying too is like the trauma goes so deep and it becomes such a part of your being and of your cellular makeup that it's like asking someone to look at their face without giving them a mirror. They can't see their own faces. They cannot see their own trauma, and they think it's gone. But yet, like Janice said, but yet it's running them. It helps, it influences all the decisions and what you wear and the way you carry yourself and the way you feel. It's always running in the background. And
yeah, like if you look
something that our silent voice is so, we're so passionate about.
Well, the thing that amazes me from my own standpoint, looking at my own life and how I approached this book, that second book that I wrote, is that I didn't know it when I was in it, that it was running me. But
can't see it.
Keeping it hidden, keeping it buried, even if I named it, right, the monster, I just kept it inside. I felt stronger for keeping it inside. But what I never saw, like you said, when we were talking about how you can't see your nose unless if you don't have a mirror, right? I didn't know I had trauma. And my marriages, two of my marriages were just done because I was too afraid to trust myself not to be married. I mean, the first time I was pregnant, that's in this book. But the second time I married we dated for 1.5 years. And I married the guy because he seemed stable. He had a stable job. It would be good for me. My oldest daughter was going to college. My youngest daughter was in high school. It just seemed stable. It seemed normal. But who made that decision for me was the afraid part of me that was scared to not do it. I didn't have any control over that decision. And whether it was right or wrong or whatever, I mean, it turns out that our marriage didn't last, but he had his own thing, right? He couldn't stay in a relationship longer than a few years, and then he had to pack up and leave. That was kind of
so in other words, if you had been able to talk about your abuse,
yes,
before that time, you might have seen a different pathway than marrying this person who was wrong for you.
Because who walked into that second marriage was the woman who was trained by the first bad decision. If I didn't get the ironing done by Thursday afternoon before he came home from work, I would be in trouble. So I'd come home from work early on Thursday to do the ironing, and my second husband thought I was nuts.
Right.
So I had to readjust, but everybody has to readjust when they're married. I just know that when I met Dave, who I'm married to now, I just had to tell him everything. I told him about the abuse. I told him about how I was raped in high school. I told him how I had lived my life, my financial troubles, my emotional troubles, my this, my that, my everything. And by the way, I slept with a guy that I dated in 1985, and I don't even know what happened to him. And if he sees my picture, oh my God, maybe he's going to remember me. But the fact of the matter is, all of that stuff that was in me, I couldn't talk about. And I had to finally talk about it because if I didn't, it was going to own me. I don't want to be
Right.
owned by a mechanism that fears and fights.
Well, and let's talk for a second about what we've seen happen even in the workshops is that people sort of hear each other's stories and they think, wow, so that's how that person dealt with it. That's how that person came through the other side. I can do that too. Or, wow, it's fascinating that that person handled it like that. And by talking about it, we find new ways to accept ourselves and accept what we've done. And and to see ourselves in new ways.
Right. Well, you know that.
But we find those things through one another and through
I
sharing
think so too.
stories.
I think we
And
do
like
too.
they say, there's safety in numbers, there's strength in numbers in this. And
Well, you
once
know-
we know how many people have been affected by this, we get stronger.
Well, you know, in that workshop, having everybody, and it was virtual, it was on Zoom. So everybody was seeing everybody on the screen just like this. But when people started sharing their story, it was like that mirror you were talking about where you can't see your nose, or you can't see your nose because you don't have a mirror. That's what happens in the workshop. Everyone else becomes a mirror and you can
Yeah.
see yourself, and it's safe. It doesn't go anywhere else, and it's safe. And you can be a community that can reflect on each other strengths, don't you think?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
know our writers were strong. Oh God. Wow.
So we have to find a way to put this in our mission statement, I think. And I'd love to know how to condense this all into a sentence or two.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Me too. That's something we have to work on. But our other exciting news is that our book, Our Silent Voice, is selling on Amazon, and our reviews are just amazing. I read them and it just gives me chills and tears. I just love how people love this book. And then this book that I wrote is on Amazon also, and its launch date is the 9th. That's the day that it will be available on Amazon Kindle version for 99 cents. And you don't need to have a Kindle. You can still buy the Kindle version and it counts to make it a bestseller. So, that's the strategy we use because we want to practice this. So if anybody else wants to publish their book with us, we go through the same process. That bestseller designation is it's kind of powerful. Sort of makes you feel proud, Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Even though it's a process and it's kind of a setup, right? It still feels so good to have your book have bestseller on. Yeah, like this one. I know. It's really exciting.
Okay, everybody.
All right. So that's it for Talk About It this week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.